Hey guys, tonight we step into a place where candlelight flickers. Perfume struggles to mask something riper, and the floorboards whisper secrets in creaks and groans. You're not just visiting history, you're walking straight into one of its most misunderstood, over-glamorized, and absolutely unlivable institutions, the medieval brothel. Now don't get any funny ideas. This isn't HBO. This is more like a Renaissance fair gone sour. You think you're prepared with your modern tolerance for bad Airbnbs and noisy neighbors? Trust me, you wouldn't last a night in here, not even close. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is as you settle into tonight's tale. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're outside the brothel now. It doesn't really have a name. Most of them didn't. Maybe a red lantern hanging from a wrought iron hook. Maybe a carved wooden sign depicting an anatomically vague couple, or a worn-out symbol everyone in town already understands. There's laughter inside, raucous, unfiltered. A lute twangs, something crashes, someone moans. It's not clear if it's in pleasure or pain. Possibly both. You push open the crooked door. It groans like it knows your future and disapproves. Inside, it's dark. No chandeliers here, just thick tallow candles dripping onto stained wood. The air is thick with smoke, from oil lamps, from the fireplace, from a pipe someone's smoking, even though it smells like damp moss and regret. There's a vague sweetness to the air too. Maybe rosewater? Or something trying very hard to be rosewater. The first thing your foot lands on is soft and moving. A rat maybe. Or just an unlucky clump of straw that's seen things it wishes it could forget. You're not sure if the floor is supposed to feel damp. You walk further in, trying not to breathe through your nose. Every step feels like it might sink you an inch deeper into something living. The floorboards flex under you. In the dim glow, you see velvet curtains strung across alcoves, stained with more stories than you care to imagine. Their deep red is almost black in places, as though centuries of wine, sweat, and who knows what have been soaked in and fossilized. A girl passes you, barefoot, in a loose linen chemise, her hair braided and pinned with copper wires. She's young, too young, but her eyes, decades old. She doesn't speak, just slides past you like a ghost with hips. And that's when you start to notice it's not really sexy at all. There's something haunted here. The laughter sounds forced. The music's slightly off-key. The furniture looks more like the waiting room of a very eccentric dentist than anything else. And the beds? Let's just say they've given up trying to look inviting. Lumpy, hay-filled sacks rest on creaky frames, the kind of thing even your nightmares would turn away from, muttering, "That's a bit much." Back in the corner, a man is passed out in a pool of, well, something. His hand still clutches a goblet. You don't want to know what's in it. But the barmaid who steps over him just shrugs. Another Thursday, probably. You approach the main counter. More of a desk, really. Here sits the madam. Not a glamorous temptress with cascading curls and a purring voice. No, this woman looks like she once fought off a bear and then hired it as security. She's got a ledger open, her finger tracing names. She doesn't look up when she addresses you. Well, looking or booking? You're about to answer when someone behind you throws up into a pot plant. It sizzles. The madam finally looks at you. First time, then. It's not a question. Behind her, tacked to the wall, is a crude drawing, a stick figure-ish sign of what appears to be house rules. No fighting, no stealing, no religious talk, no weeping. That one's underlined twice. A mainstream fact slips into your mind. In many medieval cities, Paris, London, Florence, brothels were licensed. Government-approved dens of sin. There were even official brothel inspectors. Imagine filling that job application. But not all was regulated. In smaller towns, brothels were just barely more organized than alleyway encounters. The local lord might turn a blind eye if he got his cut. The church disapproved, vocally, but sometimes hired the same workers they condemned. Hypocrisy hung in the air here as thick as the incense on Easter Sunday. The madam slaps a wooden token on the counter. Pick a curtain. She'll know what to do. You take the token like it might bite you, and as you walk deeper into the smoky haze, you start to wonder, what exactly did you sign up for? There's something vibrating under the surface of this place, like history is trying to warn you, or mock you. Historians still argue whether these brothels were primarily centers of sexual commerce, or whether they served deeper social functions, like safe havens for women otherwise cast out, or tools of male bonding in guild culture. Either way, they were never places of joy, at least not the lasting kind. Your fingers brush one of the curtain edges. The fabric clings, almost wet. A candle flickers behind it. A voice hums, tunelessly. The air is hot here, stifling. It smells like lavender and rot. You hesitate, and for good reason. Because even though you're barely 10 minutes in, you're already realizing this night isn't going to end well. You take a breath, regret it immediately, and slip past the curtain. It's darker here, the kind of dark that feels thick. You can just make out a narrow bed pushed against a wall, its sheets wrinkled and darkened by use and time. A candle sits in a rusted holder on a stool. It flickers like it's trying to warn you. Then she appears. You don't know her name, and she doesn't ask for yours. That's not how this works. She's older than you thought. Maybe mid-30s, maybe younger, maybe older. Time's harder to read when every day ages you a little faster. Her dress is coarse linen with ribbons tied loosely at the shoulders. Her face is powdered, not with luxury makeup, but with crushed chalk and dried flour dust. A faint trace of violet oil clings to her skin, just strong enough to fight the stronger, less pleasant smells of the room. It's doing its best, but it's not winning. She doesn't smile, just pats the edge of the bed like she's inviting you to sit in an old trap. You hesitate again. Your instincts are starting to yell, but you sit anyway. This close, you catch more of the aroma cocktail this place serves by default. Sweat, tallow, mildew, something metallic, probably blood from someone's nose or worse, and faintly, urine. It clings to everything like a desperate lover. She moves closer, but instead of the seduction you braced for, she begins to talk. About nothing. About everything. The price of bread. A cat who gave birth under the stairs. A neighbor girl who died of the pox last week. You realize this is the most human thing you've encountered all evening. She reaches out for your hand, but not romantically. She's checking your nails, your skin, maybe seeing how sick you look, or how rich, or both. And you're sweating. Because it's suddenly hitting you. This wasn't just about sex in the Middle Ages. This was survival, for everyone involved. A mainstream historical fact circles your brain. Medieval brothels often operated under strict rules. In places like Venice or Avignon, the women had to register, pay taxes, wear specific clothing, like yellow scarves or striped cloaks, so they wouldn't be mistaken for respectable women. And yet, they were part of the economy, the city's heartbeat. Hidden, yet essential. Legal, yet hated. She sees you noticing the stains on the bedding. Smirks. "Don't worry," she says dryly. "That's probably just wine. Probably." She stands, walks over to a chipped basin in the corner, and dunks a rag in water that's already gray before it even touches the cloth. Then she wipes her face, wrings it out, and offers it to you. You decline. She shrugs and uses it to swab a blood spot on her arm instead. And then comes the smell. It hits you like a punch. A mix of body odor, spoiled food, damp straw, and something sour, like milk that died a slow death. You try to keep your face neutral, but she sees it. They always see it. "First time," she mutters. You nod. "You'll want the clean ones then. They cost more." You glance around, confused. She's not the clean one? She points to the next curtain. "Brunhild had a bath this week. She's the luxury option. She gets honeyed water and 2 towels." You ask how often they clean the rooms. She laughs. Not a nice laugh. "Why would we clean what will only dirty again?" She pulls something from under the bed, an old bottle of wine. Or what was once wine. Now it's vinegar with ambition. She drinks, wipes the neck, offers it to you. You pass. She shrugs again. "Suit yourself." Keeps the coughing down. A quirky fact slips in like a whisper. In some 14th century English brothels, women were known to apply onion juice or even crushed garlic to their intimate areas, not for arousal, but as a crude form of protection against infection. You shudder a little, imagining the sting. Suddenly there's shouting outside the curtain. 2 voices arguing. One crashes into a table. A dog barks. Inside the building. You think you hear a lute being used as a weapon. The woman doesn't flinch. She's seen it all. You, however, are now officially alarmed. She sighs. You might want to sleep sitting up. Fewer bites that way. She gestures to the ceiling. You look up and see a trail of something. Ants, maybe? Or bedbugs on the march. You remember that story. One your teacher told once, maybe half true, maybe not, that wealthier patrons sometimes brought their own linen to brothels, not for luxury, but as a survival strategy. Historians still argue, you whisper to yourself, whether these brothels were places of freedom for women or just another flavor of captivity. She hears you. "Why not both?" she says. The candle flickers low. She stretches, yawns. "I'm going downstairs." "You want to stay here? Fine. Don't touch my shoes." And with that, she's gone. Just like that, leaving you alone in the darkness with lice, old wine ghosts, and the slow realization that no part of this evening is going to get easier. You sit, you wait, you hear more shouting. You feel something scurry near your foot. You're not sure how long you last, but eventually you lie down, because exhaustion is stronger than fear. And that's when you feel the bed move again, not from your weight, from inside it. Something's in there with you. You leap up, slam your head into the wall, curse loudly, and finally decide, with the clarity of a man pushed to his limit, that maybe, just maybe, sleep is not an option tonight. You're standing now, not sure where to go. The room's a trap, the hallway's a horror, and outside, well, you're not even sure the front door works from the inside. Your token still clenched in your hand like it means something, even though it definitely doesn't. You stumble back out into the main corridor of the brothel, that sticky labyrinth of shadows and curtains and breathing things. You think about leaving, just walking out. But something stops you. Maybe curiosity, maybe embarrassment, or maybe just the fact that you've started to realize what it means to be trapped here, even for one night. The madam eyes you from her perch at the desk. She doesn't say anything, just raises one eyebrow in a way that says, "You lasted longer than most." Behind her, someone screams, not in a fun way. And that's when you realize something deeply unsettling. There is no safe corner here. You push open another curtain, driven more by dumb hope than logic. This time a man is already in there, naked from the waist down, passed out snoring. A half-eaten meat pie rests on the windowsill beside him, collecting flies. You slowly back away, and that's when you meet her. She's different, clean, relatively. Her eyes don't look tired. They look alert, watching, calculating. She has a jug of water in her hands and a small wooden comb. You notice her sleeves are tied high on her arms to keep clean, and she has a faint scent of rosemary. Not perfume, but an actual branch, tucked behind her ear. "Looking for someone?" she asks. You try to form a sentence, but she already knows you're new. Everyone knows. She offers you a place to sit, a bench. There's no bed in this room, just the bench, a bowl of water, and a handful of rags drying on a line. You ask her what she's doing. "Making sure no one dies tonight," she says. It's not a joke. She's not a companion. She's the brothel's version of a healer. Not officially trained, of course. Most midwives and wise women operated on experience and rumor. But she knows herbs, knows signs of sickness, and most importantly, knows when to step away before the coughing becomes fatal. You mentioned the wine bottle from earlier. She nods grimly. Fermented enough to kill the worms. Or the man. She pours you water. It tastes like wood and thyme, but it's not horrible. Probably the best you'll get here. Most of the girls, she says, are already infected with something, or recovering from something, or just waiting to find out. And then she tells you about the sores, the fevers, the sudden swellings, the French disease, syphilis, though nobody's really sure who gave it to whom first. In the 15th century, it was spreading like fire, faster than gossip in a village square. They blame the French. The French blame the Neapolitans. The Neapolitans blame the Spanish. Round and round. You take another sip of the water, slowly. You think back to that history textbook, the one with the tiny paragraph buried near the end. The one that said, prostitutes in the Middle Ages were often subjected to medical examinations by city-appointed physicians to ensure they were not spreading venereal diseases. Sounds reassuring, right? But what they didn't say was that these examinations were often public, humiliating, and performed by men who knew more about leeches than women's bodies. She hands you a cloth to wipe your face. You didn't realize you were sweating again. The scholarly debate dances into your mind. Historians still argue whether brothels were necessary public health institutions or simply tolerated evils. Were they damage control or the damage itself? She wipes her hands and looks out through the curtain gap. They don't come here because they want to, she says, voice low. Not really. They come because it's the only place left. You ask her what she's doing here then. She grins. I sell remedies. The madam likes me because I can make the girls stop coughing long enough to get through a night. I like me because I don't sleep upstairs. She walks over to a shelf and lifts a small leather pouch. Inside are dried leaves, something that looks like crushed bark, and a few waxy pellets. Willow bark. For pain, she explains. And this, she holds up a green paste, for the burning. You don't ask which burning. There are too many options. A quirky tidbit resurfaces. In some brothels, there were bowls of crushed mint, vinegar, and even crocodile dung placed under beds. Not for healing, for masking smell, you'd laugh, but it's not funny now. Suddenly the curtain whips open. A man stumbles in, angry, sweaty, bleeding from his lip. He shouts something in French or Italian, hard to tell, and then glares at you like you stole something. The woman steps forward, calm as a pond. You're in the wrong room. He growls something else but doesn't challenge her. Just spits, nearly hitting your boot, and storms off, curtain flapping behind him. She turns to you, completely unshaken. That one's not coming back, not unless he wants rue in his wine again. You blink. Rue, the herb, bitter, pungent, used as both abortifacient and punishment. You ask her what time it is. She shrugs. Time doesn't matter in here. It's always night. Your stomach churns. You're starting to understand now. This isn't a place. It's a condition. A fever dream stitched together with velvet curtains, herbal ointments, and denial. The rooms don't change, but you do. And even if you do leave, something tells you you won't really be clean again. You're done pretending. No more peeking behind curtains. No more cautious sips of weird wine. You're officially in survival mode now, trudging back into the corridor like a soldier returning from battle. Wounded, wiser, and slightly more damp than you'd prefer. You pass another curtain, half open. Inside, someone is crying. Not loudly, just a soft, rhythmic weeping, like a lullaby made of exhaustion. You keep walking. Eventually, you reach the staircase. A narrow, rickety thing that looks like it was built by someone who gave up halfway through and let termites finish the job. Against all logic, you climb it. One hand on the banister, which is somehow sticky and splintery. A rare and unfortunate combo. Upstairs, the air is somehow worse. Less smoky, more lived in. The smell is intimate now, like breath that's been exhaled into the same sheets 100 times. It clings to your throat. You step over a boot, then a spoon, then a pair of stays that might still be warm. There's a chamber pot tucked in the corner of the landing. It's full. You try not to look directly at it. It tries to look directly at you. A door creaks open on your right. A voice calls. Room's free, if you want it. You step inside before you can change your mind. This room, if you can call it that, is little more than a box. Sloped ceiling, one wavy glass window, and a bed that's, well, technically upright. A candle stub is still flickering on a wooden tray. The wax has run down onto the floor and hardened into weird stalactites. You sit, very, very carefully. The mattress is straw, and not the good kind. More like whatever was left after feeding the animals. You shift your weight and hear a crunch. Could be a flea. Could be the last person's bones. Could be your dignity. But you're here now. You lie back and immediately regret it, because the ceiling starts moving. At first you think you're imagining it. Maybe your eyes are playing tricks. But no, those aren't hallucinations. Those are bed bugs, real ancient medieval bed bugs. Fat, slow, full of somebody else's blood. You sit back up with a gasp, heart pounding, skin already itching. From below, you hear laughter. Someone sings a bawdy verse. Something breaks. Someone cheers. This is normal. This is how the night goes. You look at the door and see it doesn't have a latch. So you do what any rational person would do in a brothel with no lock on the door and a mattress full of biting roommates. You wedge a stool under the handle and pray the stool is stronger than it looks. The candle flickers lower. You stare out the warped window. Outside, the alley's almost empty now. Just a few drunks, a bucket of something sloshing in the wind, and a black cat sitting on a roof tile like it owns the place. You try to sleep. You really do. But every time you start to drift, something jerks you back. A bite, a creak, a scream from downstairs, a whisper in the hallway, a cough that sounds suspiciously like tuberculosis. Your back is sore, your nose is stuffed, your feet are cold, and then something scurries across your chest. You fling yourself upright, swatting wildly at the air. A rat, a spider, a hallucination? It doesn't matter. It's enough. You sit up for the rest of the night, knees to your chest, rocking gently like a shipwreck survivor on a raft. And in the silence, because even the screaming stops eventually, you think. You think about the women here, the ones who can't leave in the morning, the ones who sleep in these sheets every night and somehow manage to wake up again. You think about the girl who checked your hands, the herbalist with the rosemary sprig, the madam with her ledger and her cracked knuckle glare. They live here, and not because they want to. A historical fact drifts into your brain like a ghost. In 15th century Nuremberg, brothels were legally required to provide one towel per patron, per night. That was the extent of luxury. One towel. You laugh, quietly, bitterly. There are no towels in your room. The candle gives one last sputter, then dies, and you are alone in the dark. You start to hum, softly, just to keep yourself company. A lullaby from childhood. You don't even realize you're doing it until you hear someone else pick it up from the room next door. Their voice is shaky, but it joins yours, just for a few lines. You smile barely, then stop, because someone just tried the door handle. The stool holds, for now, but your heart pounds in your ears. You clutch your satchel, your coin pouch, and wonder how much longer this night can last. Historians still argue whether clients saw brothels as places of intimacy or simply as functional meat markets. You're starting to think it didn't matter. Not in the dark, not when everything is breathing and crawling and waiting. You glance at the ceiling again. The bed bugs are still moving, and so is time, but very, very slowly. At some point, you must have dozed off, because you wake up to the sound of church bells, far off, hollow, mocking. It's not quite dawn. The window's gone from pitch black to a murky indigo, like the sky is reluctantly thinking about morning. You stretch, or try to. Your neck cracks, your back protests, and your knee is somehow damp. You don't ask why. You don't want to know why. The room hasn't changed. Still smells like wood rot and betrayal. The bed is still crawling. The candle stub is just a wax puddle now, fused to the tray. You reach for your satchel, make sure it's still there. It is. Lighter, maybe. You tell yourself that's paranoia, not pickpocketing. You unwedge the stool from under the door and peek out into the corridor. Empty. But then, faintly, footsteps. And not casual ones. Sharp, heavy, purposeful. You freeze, and then you hear them again. Boots, multiple boots. You dart back into your room and crack the door just enough to spy. 3 men, one in a faded red tabard with a patchy beard, one with a torch. The third, a friar maybe. Black robes, stern face, rosary swaying from his belt. They don't knock on the doors. They open them, one after the other. A girl yelps, another curses. One slams the door in their face. Doesn't help. They kick it back open. This isn't a friendly visit. This is inspection. The man in the tabard barks something about immorality, licensing, and filthy pagan conduct. You catch the word tithe more than once. Ah, the church has arrived. In many medieval towns, the church and the local authorities took turns pretending to hate brothels, while secretly profiting from them. In Florence, some convents doubled as hidden brothels. In Avignon, the Pope's own city, Brothels operated with papal tolerance, as long as the taxes came in on time. Hypocrisy? Tradition, really. The men move toward your door. You panic. But just before they reach it, a new voice rings out. Calm, commanding. It's the madam. "Gentlemen," she says, cool as frost, "we've paid this week." A pause. Then the friar speaks. "Then surely you don't mind us checking the books?" The madam doesn't answer, but her silence is scarier than yelling. They don't come into your room, not yet. You hear the desk drawer open. Papers rustle. Someone sighs. "You've taken in travelers," says the friar. "You didn't report them." The madam again. "They don't stay long enough to matter." One of the guards says something you can't catch, but the tone is clear. Warning. You press your ear to the door. A scholarly debate floats to the surface of your mind. Historians still argue whether these raids were genuine moral crackdowns or just performance, public theater to remind everyone who held power. Either way, the results were real. Fines, public shaming, beatings, sometimes worse. Downstairs, a bottle smashes. You hear someone run, then silence. The men leave not long after. You wait until you can no longer hear their boots before you step out again. The madam is at her desk, scowling. She sees you. "You picked a hell of a night." You offer a shrug. She doesn't laugh, just gestures to the ledger. They want names now, visitors, locals, doesn't matter. Anyone who walks through that door is a liability. You ask what happens if she doesn't give them. She levels a look at you. "You think I'd still be alive if I played fair?" You nod. "Fair enough." Down the hallway, one of the girls is scrubbing something off the wall with vinegar. Another is crying. A third is doing her hair in a broken mirror, totally unfazed. Life goes on. Somehow. You walk down the stairs. They creak like old bones. At the bottom, the herbalist is back, sitting near the hearth, grinding something with a mortar and pestle. She looks up. "Didn't get arrested. That's good." You nod. She adds something green to her paste, sniffs it, winces, adds more. You ask her what the church wants from a place like this. She shrugs. Control, confession, and a cut. She hands you a small cloth bundle. "Soap," she says, "or something close to it. You'll need it when you leave." You take it. It's damp, gritty, and smells like lye and crushed rosemary. You don't question it. A quirky historical tidbit comes to mind. In London, it was common for brothels to display wax figures of saints, or even hang rosaries in the rooms. Not because they were holy, but to confuse inspections. Religious symbols meant protection, or at least plausible deniability. You glance around. This place has no saints, just survivors. You sit by the hearth for a bit. There's a warmth there, not just from the fire, but from the simple fact that it's the only part of the building that feels remotely human. A girl walks past, limping slightly, her hair undone. She doesn't look at you, just drops a coin into a jar on the counter labeled Soap Fund. You suddenly understand how vital that jar is. Another hour passes. The outside light grows brighter. Someone yawns, someone vomits, someone begins sweeping. The night is almost over, but the brothel never sleeps. Not really. It just shifts shape, like some weary beast curling up for a nap with one eye open. And you're still here, alive. Barely, but you made it. Sort of. So you're lying there, hoping to catch a moment of peace, or at least a nap. But there's a muffled sound in the wall, whispers, giggles, then crying, then silence. You begin to notice something. Everyone here is listening, not just to pleasure, to everything. Because medieval brothels weren't just dens of lust. They were hubs of gossip, power, and espionage. Kings, merchants, priests, and mercenaries all passed through, and their secrets spilled like cheap wine. And someone, maybe the girl brushing her hair in the corner, maybe the boy offering drinks, was always listening. Informants were common. Some worked for rival brothels, others for corrupt guards, a few for the church. Yes, that church, the one that preached fire and brimstone but still had eyes inside every pillow fort of sin. One wrong word and you could find yourself arrested not for lust, but treason. You try to stay quiet, blend in. But then the madam walks by and says with a strange smile, "You're new here, aren't you?" You nod slowly. She leans in and whispers, "So was the last one." He screamed too. It's late now. Your candle has melted into a stub. Your shoes are missing. So is your dignity. And somewhere along the way, your coin pouch vanished too. You try to leave. But surprise, nothing here is free. Not the bed, not the lice-ridden blanket, not even the sour wine that tasted like boiled feet, and certainly not the company. You explain you were robbed. The bouncer explains he doesn't care. That's when a short man with a bad eye and a worse attitude taps your shoulder. "There's a way out." He grins, showing a set of teeth that look like they've been through a war. But it involves either money, blood, or a favor. You ask what kind of favor. He doesn't answer, just hands you a small wrapped parcel and tells you to deliver it before sunrise. You take it, you run, but you already know. You're involved now. And there's no clean way out of a medieval brothel's debt, not one that doesn't leave scars. The sky is turning pale blue. The streets are still slick with last night's sins. You stumble into the light, hungry, aching, itchy in places you'd rather not discuss. You survived, but you're different now, not stronger, just more cautious, more aware of how quickly a fun night can turn into a historical trauma. And as you look back at the brothel's crooked silhouette against the sunrise, you whisper the same thing every survivor says: never again. Subscribe.